And we're on.
Okay.
It was as easy as that, Nads.
Yep.
So I'm here with Narada Kudinar. It would be since uni days through friends of friends or something like that we connected.
Yep.
And
Through cars.
Yeah, and through cars. Yeah, I think there's a common theme in a lot of my relationships. It's either like with friends and things like that. It's always martial arts, cars.
Yeah.
They're probably the two main things that always pop up, in terms of things that I connect with people on.
Yep. I don't know martial arts, so.
Yeah, no, so, but also I think, so where you grew up, your neighbours, I was like, I knew your neighbours as well as like for friends and other ways, right?
Yep.
So I guess to put it into a little bit of perspective, so Narada now, runs a couple of shops. So there's John Montagu, which is a cafe. Yep. And then there's also Yan Restaurant.
Yep.
Okay, and we'll get into a little bit about that. And I guess before that there was Circuit Club and some other bits and pieces as well. So if we go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
What would be to I guess give people a little bit of context? Where did you grow up?
I mainly grew up in West Penny Hills.
Yep.
Yep.
Which is a suburb in northwest of Sydney.
Yep.
Yep.
Kind of near where you grew up, right?
That's it. Yeah. So I originally the first house that we lived in was in St Clair.
Oh, okay.
So I was like a true Westie.
Okay.
And then I think at the age of 10, we moved to Baulkham Hills.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Well, I lived there since I was 4.
Since you were 4.
Yeah.
And so before that?
In the east, Pagewood.
Pagewood?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember much about that?
And we lived in Ryde as well. Not really.
Not really?
Not really. I kind of, but not really.
Yeah.
I remember watching Transformers on TV.
So what would your earliest memory be?
I've not thought about that much at all. I do remember, like I said, watching Transformers.
Yep.
Maybe little snippets of maybe being in a bath or something.
Yep.
As a baby.
Yep.
I don't think about it much.
So so when you think back on your childhood, is there any sort of memory that does stand out for you? Like it doesn't have to be the earliest. It's just one of those things that,
Not really. No, I don't have a lot of memories of when I was a kid. Actually, I have a really bad memory.
Yeah.
So I tend to forget things a lot, and I don't know if that's something wrong with me.
Yeah.
But just being a kid, growing up, I remember all the things that I think most kids would. So riding bikes on the street.
Yep.
Playing with my cousins, eating.
Yep.
Yeah. Watching a lot of TV.
Yep.
Yeah. I grew up watching a lot of TV.
Okay. And what were your favourite shows?
Transformers. For
Transformers?
Sure. Yeah. And like maybe when I was younger, a lot of Warner Brothers stuff.
So like Bugs Bunny.
Bugs Bunny.
Yep.
We had that on tape. But I think for sure my favourite was Transformers. Yeah. From an early age. Before I got a bit older and it was like X-Men and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So with Transformers, did you have a specific Transformer that you really liked?
No, not really. I feel like personally, I don't have a lot of favorites.
Okay.
I don't like kind of hone in on things. I like
general
stuff. So
then what about Decepticons?
equal love for all.
Versus Autobots?
Of course, you go for Autobots. Obviously, you want to be a good guy.
Yep.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. The movie was probably the standout, memorable thing that I remember watching. Okay. Yeah.
And was that just because it's a visualization thing where you see it on the big screen, or
no? It wasn't on the big screen. It was on a video on the TV.
Yep.
Yeah, but I think it just had a more powerful. At the time, it seemed more powerful story and message. But I've been watching it back now with Benny.
Yeah.
And it's the weirdest shit. It's seriously, I reckon the guys were really high when they made that.
But it's captivating when you're a kid, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Benny loves it.
How old's Benny now?
3.
3.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
It goes fast, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I found it on some streaming
platform
device we have.
Yep.
And I was was like, oh, let's watch this back. And Benny loved it. And I was like, this is weird as, from the 80s.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's pretty cool.
And the animation, it's very different to what kids get nowadays.
Yeah.
They get 3D things.
Yeah.
Here we are watching, I guess, for the better part of a word, it's a drawing, right?
Yeah.
It's been animated.
Yeah, it's cool.
All right. And then, so school-wise, what was the first school you went to? So primary school?
I went to West Pennant Hills Public.
Yep.
And Pennant Hills High. So same school.
Yep.
All the way through. I didn't change schools. Yeah. I had a very stable life. Yeah.
And I guess what type of kid would you describe yourself as?
Different.
Different?
I think because I was pretty much one of the only Asians. I didn't know many other Asians growing up other than my family.
Yep.
Yeah.
And did that, I guess, when did you first become aware that you might have been different for being Asian?
Probably like 5th or 6th grade, I think. That's when you realise. Yeah.
And how did you realise? Like,
just when you start getting into girls.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Why? Did it lead to rejection, or was
I think you realise that the other sex doesn't look at you the same way that they would.
Yep.
White guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, do you think that's okay? Well, this is interesting because I think I think typically Asian males haven't been represented as dominantly as or as strongly as we could in film, right?
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, it's not about like racism or anything like that. It's just what you're aware of and what the media portrays as being attractive.
Yep.
And so, if there isn't a lot of your type of face on TV, then people aren't even going to think about it.
Yep.
When they look at you, probably.
Yep.
I don't know, but probably.
Yeah.
There's no thought.
Yep.
Of that.
Yep.
So it doesn't even cross the mind.
Yep.
So yeah, I think I remember feeling different.
Yep.
Back then.
And I've got to ask, like,
having your white friends being more popular with the girls than you are.
Yep.
But anyway.
So then, like, in your, like, so I guess when you think about your group of friends, right? I guess not to say it's like leader or follower type thing, but like I guess were your friends more into the things that you were into, or were you more into the things that they were into?
I think it was mutual. I didn't really follow that much.
Yep.
What my friends were into. I think you kind of find your friends that are into the same things, maybe.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I guess thinking about cars, right? Like, when did that come into the picture? When did you start to really have
since it was my first word.
Car was your first word.
Yeah. Not mum or dad.
and
it's lifelong passion.
Lifelong passion.
Yeah.
And do you remember what that was there a particular car that you really loved as a kid?
No, I don't remember. See, that's the thing. I don't have like favorites or particular things. So going back to an early memory, I remember trying to make a speed hump.
A speed hump?
Yeah, because you want to
Was it
use
for
your
a
toy
jump
car,
or-
like a toy car, and just drive around over speed humps, right?
Yep.
Because that was the thing cars did. And I remember trying to draw one. So I'd get like a ruler or something.
Yep.
And put it under a piece of paper, and then I'd draw the speed hump, and then I'd take the ruler out and try and figure out why the speed hump wasn't there anymore.
You just show flat over it. I laugh because when I was just looking at the little track that that Nad's got set up in his living room.
Yeah.
And
I've seen Benny do the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just trying to work out, like, he wants a speed bump, he wants traffic lights and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's because that's the driving that you sort of see.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch any motorsport as a kid?
No, I
So
didn't.
that all came later.
Yeah.
It's funny. I always wonder whether some of those influences that we get and our kids get, whether that's just something in their DNA, right? Or if it's something that they've picked up from the surroundings. Like, I know your old man's a little bit into cars, but would you say he's really into cars, or?
No, not in the same way that I am. But I I wouldn't be sure, but probably he might have been influencing in maybe buying a toy car or something when you're a kid.
Yep.
And you kind of given things that you might want to like.
Yep.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
It's hard to tell.
Yep. And okay, so then when you got into high school, how did you find? Did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy primary school more?
Yeah, I don't have a lot of school memories. I think I enjoyed school generally.
Yep.
Maybe not as much as others.
Would you call yourself academic or?
I think I was kind of smart academically.
Yep.
Which then I thought I didn't have to try.
Yep.
So I got really lazy. I remember being really top of the grade all the way through primary school.
Yep.
And even early high school, years 7 and 8, I think I did really well.
Mm.
And then I just dropped off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's hard. It's one of those things that I think all
complacency, mate.
Yeah. I think every kid goes through it. Like I remember a similar thing. You get to year 7 and you just start wanting to do the things that you enjoy and have fun with your mates. Play games, all that sort of stuff, and then you don't really think about it until then you get closer to the end of your school, high school career, and then you've got to go, oh, I've got to make a choice here. Do I apply myself or do I not? So
yeah, I think I learned early on though that I was a practical learner.
So very hands-on.
Yeah, I think things had to be practical for me to understand it. I look back now at things that I didn't understand. It's because I was probably not shown why I needed to understand it. So I need to know why I need to learn things before I learn them. Yep. And I think a lot of school rebellion might have come from that, perhaps.
Yeah, well, I guess, school is a cookie cutter approach to life, right? Like,
that's right.
They're trying to cater to, the 80% within the bell curve, as opposed to the 10% on either side at either end who might learn in a different way. Does that, I guess obviously that probably plays a part in why you don't remember too much about school.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, I just didn't really care too much about school.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then, so did you have, what were your main interests outside of school then?
During high school, there was a lot of video games.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that was the main video games, anime. Loved all that stuff.
So what
and hanging out with people, with your friends is like what you thought you wanted to do. Yep. Maybe. Yep. So, but the things I probably enjoyed most were playing games and watching movies.
Which games?
Gran Turismo, obviously.
Gran Turismo, yep.
Gran Turismo is what got me into racing.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I loved all types of games, like Final Fantasy and fighting games like Street Fighter.
Yep.
Yeah. I like them all.
Yeah. Street Fighter was massive back in the days.
Yeah.
I actually
I was never that good at it though.
No?
No.
See, I was one of the lucky ones. So what happened for me was that my mum used to have a computer shop.
Yeah.
And my dad was an accountant.
Yeah.
And so at they used to have an office in that was like in the main street of Blacktown, and then they moved to a different office, which was at it's still in Blacktown, but I think it's called St Martin's Place, which was like a little almost like a community style shopping centre. It just had like a back then it was a Franklin's, so we actually had an arcade machine at the shop.
Yep.
Right, but obviously the money was for my parents, so they never gave me any money to play. Yeah. so all I would do is I'd just stand out the front and just try and bum games off people.
Yeah.
But they'd play out the front of the shop.
Yeah.
And I think there was a game back then called could have been Rampage.
Right.
Where it's like you play these monster characters and you destroy buildings.
Yeah.
And then the games progressively got better and better until one day we had a Street Fighter machine.
Yeah.
And there was another boy that also his name was Richard. His parents owned the the Chinese takeaway shop in the same complex.
Yep.
And he was really good at Street
Yep.
Fighter. Like
Yep.
he was like, I think he's probably got 4 or 6 years on me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I used to hang around with him a lot trying to bum his games because he was really good. So we used to do the thing where he'd play the first round, then I'd play the second round, probably lose, and then he'd play the third round and win it.
Yeah.
And we used to do that. And I just laughed because I remember one time now that I was playing that machine and I was so into the game, I felt like there was something on my leg, like a fly or something. And I kept just stamping my leg, but I kept playing. Yeah. Until I died or whatever. Yeah. And then I looked down at my leg. There was a spider on my leg, and it was only like maybe say a centimeter and a half. So it was like a baby spider. Yeah. But I remember it was yellow and black. Yeah. Right. And obviously, as I'd been stamping my leg, the spider bit me. Yeah. Right. And so I went and told my dad, Dad, I've been bitten by a spider. Yeah. And my dad's response was, just go and lie there. Yeah. And then I remember having this intense headache for like 4 hours. Yeah. And I just lay there like saying, oh, Dad, spider bit me. Yeah. I'm in pain. Yeah. And he didn't take me to the doctors or anything. Right? Right. So I don't know what sort of, whether it was poisonous or obviously there must have been some kind of poison for me to feel like that. But I felt like there was a hole in my head. Yeah, right. Right? And my dad, being the kind of guy he just basically just said, just lie there. Yeah. I'm working. Yeah. And you just deal with it. Yeah. But I got through it. I never had to go to hospital for it.
Lucky your dad, I'd say.
But yeah, anyway, so that was one of the things that I just...
Lucky him.
Yeah. Anyway, so there's probably some repressed emotions there.
Yeah,
anyway.
right.
So how did you perform in the HSC?
I did pretty decently, except I failed the subject, so it brought me down a lot.
Which subject?
I did 3-unit history.
Okay.
I thought it'd be interesting.
Yeah.
So that's a story that maybe we can share. I'd actually tried to do 4-unit maths. Yep. I was really good at maths, actually. I really understood it. Mm. And the lazy person I was, back then you had to do a minimum of 10 units, right? Yep. And then people would say, just do 12, whatever, so you have a backup. And I'm like, screw that. Yeah. I want as many free periods as possible. Yeah. So I went for 10 units, and then my last unit was going to be 4-unit maths. Okay. And then the day before Year 12 started, I got a phone call from the teacher, and she was actually our year advisor as well. And she told me, look, I don't think you should come to our class. I just don't think you'll be okay with, the subject.
Really?
And, you're only in Year 12, so you just take it. And he was like, yeah, whatever, that's fine. Okay. I'll just choose something else. So I chose 3-unit history. I thought it'd be interesting. Yeah. But it was a really hard subject. Yeah, and then that kind of, I never thought about it until later in life, and I thought that was really shitty for a teacher to do that. Yeah. Not to give people a chance. Mm. I got 99 in 3-unit maths, I think, and 98 in 2-unit maths.
So you had the capability.
Yeah, it would have been pretty easy, I think. I actually did really well in all the subjects, all above 90.
So it was just
in the end
3-unit history.
But 3-unit history, I got 49 or 48. Oh, and then so my UAI was like 74 or something.
Because you didn't have that backup unit.
Yeah. So I completely failed that subject. It was like completely. Yeah. And then that's probably, in a way, I don't mind it, blessing in disguise, but it's kind of interesting for that to happen. And then you think back on that. Yeah.
And you go, well, obviously you performed well in it. Why? Yeah. What was the rationale?
Well, the rationale is that I had a bad reputation. Okay. In high school.
What was the reputation?
Just like, I would rebel against teachers. I'd always get in trouble.
Really?
Yeah, for sure.
I wouldn't have pictured that from you. Honestly, when I look at you today, right?
I was the first to question everything.
So was that just because you were bored?
Especially religious studies. I questioned everything there. I used to get sent out of religious studies all the time. Yeah.
So, okay, so let's talk about that. Right? So, I guess from a religion point of view, is your family religious?
No, not really.
Yeah, okay. So, but Pennant Hills is just a normal public school, right? So
yeah, but back then, all your schools had religious
Scripture.
studies, scripture,
Yep.
this and that. Yeah.
Yep. And so then what were the things that you would ask?
Just like, the things that stupid kids would ask, like, why would you have to do this and go to hell or go to heaven or whatever? That kind of thing. Yeah.
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 And I guess, like today, what would your position be more like in terms of religion? Are you like agnostic? Are you atheist? How would you?
I think I'm very spiritual. I think I agree with a lot of religion. I just don't follow any particular one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that just like from the more like the morality side of things?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I think if you look into a lot of religion and you read the stories, they all have some kind of story to tell, some kind of lesson to learn. So yeah, that's what I take from it. Yeah.
Yeah. I always find it funny because I think, that's, I always talk about how, storytelling was an older version in terms of the transfer of information.
Yeah.
Right. So before written records and all that sort of stuff, the only way to pass on knowledge would have been to either show somebody or tell them through a story or some kind of anecdote that then makes it memorable, right? And I think, when people study like, mnemonics and how to like develop their memory, those guys that can, remember a deck of cards from, one end to the other is because they can form a story between, the king and the four and the diamonds and blah, 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 and all that sort of stuff to then be able to recite those things. I have a bit more of a, I don't think my methodology is very coherent in terms of how I remember things, but I've always had this thing where, I could remember phone numbers.
Yeah.
And I'd drill it into my head, to remember this number or that number, and then it'd be there. The only problem is that sometimes when you've gotten too many of those numbers, then they get confused.
Okay.
Yeah. So like PIN cards,
Yeah.
like PIN codes and things like that.
Yeah.
So, you have all these PIN codes from like previous workplaces in your head, and then under pressure, it's like you're trying to bust out the right PIN code, and you always get it like, whether the digits are back to front or you put in the old PIN code, right?
Right.
So, I find it interesting that, you had this sort of, rebellious streak in that sense.
Oh, totally. I thought we all did, but anyway.
Were your friends like that though?
Yeah, I mean, I ended up with friends who were rebellious.
Yep.
In a sense, towards the end of high school, I was probably like you would call it an outcast kind of group.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't into drugs or anything, but I hung out with people who were. So, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think experimentation is one of those things, right? That a lot of that a lot of high school students go through.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, so how did your parents respond when obviously you got your results?
They were fine. I mean, I think everyone thought I had a reputation of being maybe the smartest kid in our family, like overall. And me and my cousin Christy are in the same grade and we went to the same school and she smashed me. But everyone thought I was like going to beat her in the HSC and I didn't. So I didn't have the worst result in my family, but I think it just wasn't what people thought.
Expected.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think my parents understood that it wasn't the be all and end all.
Yep.
I didn't have crazy tiger parents.
Yep.
So they weren't particular. They wanted me to do well, but they weren't particularly that disappointed.
Yep.
Yeah.
So did you, throughout your high school career, did you ever have to hide a report card or anything like that? Or
No.
was it pretty open with them?
It was pretty open, and they'd tell me off and I'd be like, oh, I'll try better next time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really did try for the HSC though. I thought I would give it a shot.
Yep.
And I really did try. I remember.
Yep.
Yeah. Amongst that and playing StarCraft.
StarCraft was the game back then. Yeah. So who were you? Did you Terran, Protoss, or Zerg?
I was Protoss, but I wasn't very good at it.
Okay.
Yeah. It was just fun to play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I had the opposite to you where, I think my parents were too busy in the high school years to actually, I think they sort of gave up, like in the sense that, when I was young in kindergarten to in primary school, like my mum I would say she's like a tiger mum. She was self-employed business owner, enrolled me into all the extracurricular activities, all that sort of stuff, and was really focused on, my academics. And then, I think, in that high school period of my life, they were probably just too busy to really focus on it. So I still would, hide my report cards and things like that.
Yeah.
To avoid capital punishment.
You can't really hide things that, that are going to be there. There's no such thing as there's no report card this year.
Yeah.
But, same, my parents probably were just too busy to really focus in on it. Whether they wanted to or not, I'm not sure. But, they were really busy as well. Yeah. Yeah, my dad was self-employed. So at that stage, I think business was getting pretty busy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Starting to build.
Yeah, quite significantly, yeah.
Yeah, no pun intended. So okay, to put in some context so that people can understand. So Narada's dad, he's an architect, I think. Yep.
Yeah.
And
at that time, he was still just an architect. Yep.
Yep. Yeah. And then, obviously, so I guess as an interesting side note, another connection that I have with Narada and his parents is that through my Kung Fu stuff, Narada's dad, when he was doing developments and things like that, we'd come and do the groundbreaking ceremonies. And I think you hooked that up to start off with. And so then there was a bit of an association there. And then obviously, because I'm in the car game, then there was an association there when some cars were purchased and some other bits. Well, lots of cars were purchased actually. But but we've always maintained a good relationship as a result of it. So the guys know anytime they need something car related, they just call me and ask me, what's going on or what's this or what's that. And I try my best to explain it to them.
Yeah.
So then after high school, what were you?
I went to uni. I went to Western Sydney.
Yep.
Probably the only uni that would take a grade so low.
And what were you studying?
Property economics.
Property economics.
Yeah. So obviously my dad, being an architect and working for property developers, tried to
coach you that way.
Yeah, put me in that direction because he knew it was a way for me to make lots of money.
Yep.
Yeah.
And did you enjoy it?
Nah, I hated it. So, ever since I was probably, year 9 or year 10, on school holidays, I'd work at my dad's place. And then he'd have developers come around with cool cars.
Yep.
And he'd tell them to take me out in the cars and stuff. So he's trying to, plant a seed that, you could, if you get into property, you could get any car you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how it started. So I did that. I actually didn't know what I wanted to do, to be honest. I didn't really care too much for education at the time. So I just did whatever my parents told me I should do. Yeah.
And so when you went to work, when you were working for him at, because I know there was a time there where you were working at the office there, right?
Yeah, I've worked at my dad's office since I was really young, just on holidays, just labeling things and filing things and shit like that.
Yeah, so it's like administrative stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so did you end up finishing the property economics?
Yeah, I did. Yep. Took me 5 years.
Okay.
It was a 3-year degree.
So you went to part-time at some point?
Yeah, I went to part-time, failed a couple of subjects. Finished, got a degree on a P50.
Yeah, that's right. P's get degrees. That's the saying, right?
That's it.
And then, so then what were you thinking to do after that?
Yeah, I didn't know. At the time, so we started Circuit Club when I was 18.
Yep.
After the first year of uni. towards the end of the first year of uni. That's when we started Circuit Club.
Yep.
And so I just really wanted to do that.
Yep.
Yeah. I was convinced that I could make it a full-time job. So throughout uni, that's what I was doing most of the time. I had a job, but I would wake up at like 6 in the morning, do some Circuit Club emails or whatever, and then go to work, and then come home and do more Circuit Club stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like full on. I thought of myself as a business owner at that point already. Yeah.
So what I remember about how Circuit Club came about was, we were doing the weekly run to the old Pacific Highway.
Yeah.
Lots of cars.
Yeah.
Just a bit of fun.
Yeah.
All just spirited driving, nothing illegal.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point then it sort of evolved into these track days.
Yeah.
And so it was yourself, Tim.
Yeah.
Ivan.
Yeah.
Who else was there?
Daniel.
And Daniel, that's right. And then it just sort of became like, I think at some point there was like an event like every month.
Yeah.
And you would also produce this magazine.
Yeah.
Right. And so it was all actually, very, very quality production, but I guess that's a testament to the amount of time that you were putting into it.
Yeah, it was a lot of time.
Yeah.
A lot of time. I loved it. I still have very fond memories
Of that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Looking back on it, it was such an amazing period of time. Yeah.
And I guess, doing that, running Circuit Club, what did it teach you in terms of about business?
A lot of things. It taught me a lot about myself, I think, mostly. In terms of actually running a business, probably allowed us to make so many mistakes, right, without having much consequence.
Yeah.
And learning what not to do, I think, was probably a really big part of that. But the biggest part would just be knowing, getting self-confidence and knowing more about yourself. I think that's what I took out of the most part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there an example of one of the things that you learnt not to do?
Yeah, a lot of things. I think just spending money on things without really knowing what to expect back
in return.
Yeah, maybe. I think it's a lot about how to manage things, manage people, manage your time. I still don't manage my time very well, but I think, for example, I was probably I'm very stubborn, and I was probably very stubborn back then, and knowing that how to compromise, I think, is really important. So, I'd get quite angry all the time of things that I thought that we needed to do that nobody else agreed with me.
Yeah.
So whether it was right or wrong, I think you learn a lot about how you can be when you're being passionate.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was probably not the easiest person to work with.
Yeah. It's always one of those things that when people are really passionate about what they do, that intensity can rub off on other people the wrong way.
For sure. It's kind of like, it's just a classic case of being a control freak in a sense. Trying to control everything. I think I learnt a lot that you can't control everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's no point in trying sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes I think the control thing comes out of, when something's new and you're trying to learn something new, you want to get involved with everything.
Yeah.
And then when things then have to scale, then it's hard to then let go of it, right? Because you're so used to doing it, and then sometimes it's easier to just keep doing it yourself.
Perhaps, but I think it's also just about ego. I mean, when you're younger especially, you think you know everything. And you know the right way to do things, and nobody else can do it better than you.
Yep.
So then you just go and do it.
Mm.
And, you know, it's very frustrating to be a person who thinks they should be doing everything and that nobody else is doing it right.
Mm.
It's very difficult to be in that position because you end up becoming very upset at other people.
Yep.
When, you know, really the problem is you in yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so had this ever come up in any other aspect of your life, or was it only through Circuit Club that you sort of started to realise some of these things?
Yeah, mostly just through Circuit Club. I didn't really care too much about any other job I had. So, you know, I'd do the job fine. I was a good employee, I think, because I could think for myself.
Yeah.
But in sense, Circuit Club taught me most of that stuff early on. Yeah.
So then, I guess when Circuit Club started to wind down a little bit, then when did you? So, how do we get into the restaurants and things like that? Obviously, John Montagu came first.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we share another common link in Sam, Gabrielian, I think.
Yep.
Yep. So I know Sam, and Sam's been on this podcast before, and I know Sam through cars, but you know Sam through coffee, which is his other great passion. How did you two meet?
He was already supplying the cafe that I'd taken over before it was John Montagu.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had started there just as an employee, or
no. We took over the business. It was a failing business.
Yep.
It was such a great opportunity. The landlord of the building owned the cafe, and it wasn't doing well. So they were looking for someone to just take over and pay rent.
Okay.
So they had a relationship with Sam.
So what year was that you got involved with that?
2013.
2013.
Yeah.
And so there's probably a bit of a crossover period, right? So from because Circuit Club would still have been going pretty strong.
It's still going now, man.
It's still going now. Obviously, the events are a bit less now, right? Like, so
yeah, for sure.
Everybody's schedules are a lot more crazy with kids and things like that.
Yeah.
But so how did that come about for you to have that opportunity? Like, was that something that you wanted to do?
Yeah, for sure. You know, actually, throughout my early adulthood, I started to be really interested in food. I think I've always loved food, but I've never really, I loved eating and I really liked food, but I never understood what was out there until, you know, you start going out. And
experiencing
things.
Yep.
I think Circuit Club, what it taught me a lot about myself was that I actually really enjoy hospitality. Yeah. I always thought it was about the cars, but it really wasn't. It was kind of like you have an event and people come to your event and they want to have a good time and you're there to facilitate people
the experience,
having a good time. And that's what was most important to me, was that, you know, people left our track days happy and, you know, ecstatic and, you know, feeling happier than when they arrived. So when I was going to get married in 2011, food was really important to me already by then. So I didn't want just any wedding with any wedding food.
Yeah.
I think food was going to be the most important part of our wedding. And so I wanted to, you know, just instead of hiring a catering company or whatever, I went out and looked for a chef to collaborate with and basically cook amazing food for the people who are going to come and celebrate with us.
Wow.
And that's where I met Ray, who was my partner, who ended up being my partner in the businesses.
Yep.
And at our wedding, we had hired a like a farmstead. Basically, it was just a farm with a house, and there was no catering company or anything like that. So I just had to hire cooking equipment.
Yep.
And I think I spent most of the time serving food.
Okay.
Yeah, and I loved it. It was awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
So even at your own wedding, you're helping to serve the food.
Yeah, and the other guys will remind me or remind anyone that in my speech I thanked the chef and I didn't thank my groomsmen.
Okay. What was do you remember what the menu was?
Yeah, we had it was very casual. We had a few just things to share basically. We had like a buffet basically. So we had some cold seafood and some little like canapes to start with, some like soup and a few things. And then the main thing was just like kind of like a rotisserie setup where it wasn't a rotisserie, but kind of like that where we would just have basically slabs of meat that we would carve up. A carvery.
Yep.
And people would just line up and pick up
what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you find Ray? Like, where did you look? Did you just Google places? Or?
So Circuit Club comes in to every part of my life.
Okay. Yep.
You know, it's amazing. You start something and you don't know what you're going to get out of it.
Yep.
Just that one track day, I parked in the garage and there was a couple next to me in a Honda as well.
Yep.
And they asked me for a passenger ride.
Yep.
So I took the guy's girlfriend in the car, and I just took her for a few laps. And then I was like, "What do you do?" And she's like, "I'm a pastry chef." I was like, "You know what? I'm looking for a pastry chef. I'm looking for chefs." And that was Elsa.
Okay.
So Elsa, then she's a pastry chef. She became my wife's business partner, but she did all the desserts and stuff, and she worked with Ray. And she's like, "I know this guy is really good. He'd probably be interested." So that's how I met Ray.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And
So
all that
Circuit
from
Club.
just
that's
Circuit
it.
Club passenger ride.
Yeah.
Wow. And then okay. So then from the so going to 2013 when you guys take over this space, what was the coffee shop called before you guys took over?
Holy Grind.
Okay.
Because it was on Cathedral Street.
Yep.
I guess so. That's where the word holy came from, and grind being coffee grinds, something like that. Yeah.
And was there a bit of an oh shit realization when you get into this business and you're like, oh, I didn't realize exactly what I was getting myself into? Or
it wasn't so bad for me. It was different for Ray because he hadn't had any business experience.
Yep. So he was just working as a chef.
Yeah, we were partners.
Yep.
I put the money in, and he was supposed to do the food and basically, cook.
Yep.
And I would help run things.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. And how did the name John Montagu come about?
We hadn't originally wanted to open here in Woolloomooloo, but when we thought we'd take over, we thought it'd be a good opportunity because it was really cheap, and it's like, what could go wrong? You know, worst case scenario, it doesn't work out. But it's a good way to start. And the kitchen was tiny, and had not much firepower.
Yep.
So I just thought we need to make sandwiches.
Okay.
Yeah. It was like, that'd be a good way to start, sandwiches and coffee. And we just make some really awesome sandwiches.
Yep.
And Ray had brought up John Montagu. He said, "Do you know who he is?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "Well, he invented the sandwich." So we looked it up, and that's when we knew. It's like, let's just call it John Montagu. Yeah.
Yep.
That's a really cool name.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as that business develops, right? So obviously, when you took it over, it was in a position where it wasn't making any money. Obviously, when did you turn your first profit?
It was pretty quick. But it's one of those things. You don't just make your way. Like, I think in this kind of business, you don't make your way into just making a profit and then just set.
Yep.
Probably within like a couple of months, we were already making profit. But it's a cycle of making profits and then having to grow and then spending more money and then having to catch up again.
Yep.
So, for the first year, probably still costed money, but throughout that, it was, just growing pretty quickly. Yeah.
And was the growth organic, or did you have to do any other sort of marketing to go?
No, it was organic. Yeah. We actually, our strategy from then and since till now is not to really promote much. Yeah, to start slow.
Yep.
So we didn't really tell anyone. We invited a couple of neighbors to come in to try something, and then we just opened the doors to see what would happen. I thought it would be busier actually, because at the time people would just line up to everything new.
Yep.
But it took a little while for people to realize we'd opened because we didn't tell anyone, which is cool, which is great. But
I think that also gives you time to get things right.
Yeah, that's the way.
Yeah.
I like to say now that is the right way to do it. Yeah.
And then it's everything's more organic and it's merit based.
That's right.
People have a good experience or they enjoy the flavors.
Yeah.
They'll come back or they'll tell friends.
Yeah.
So then, how did you learn how to make coffee then?
Through I'd met a guy. His name was John, and he was a barista trainer. He would do it on the side. I don't know how I met the guy. I think
Circuit Club?
No, it wasn't through Circuit Club. I think my brother had wanted to make coffee or something, and knew that there was this guy on forums who taught people coffee. He was an old guy. Really nice guy. He taught me how to make coffee, and then from there, Sam as well.
Yep,
taught me how to.
There's
make
a
coffee.
real, and it's going to sound wanky, but there's a real art form and culture behind it, isn't there?
Yeah, it's pretty big. It's not as big now. I think it's kind of gone past its peak in terms of what people were like really getting into it for. These days, coffee is less of an art and more of a science. So it's about precision.
Yep.
Back then, when we first opened, it was an art form because you had to make consistent coffee and basically judge everything yourself without any help.
Yep. So no scales.
But now you have scales, everything's automated.
Yep.
So there's not a lot of art to it.
Anymore.
Yeah. It's very
interesting.
Very, very precise.
So
very
do you think
easy.
has that changed coffee culture then?
Maybe a little bit. Yeah. I don't know. I think there used to be a real like grungy kind of feel to coffee, whereas these days it's a bit cleaner. Yeah. But no, I think people still just enjoy coffee.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think there was a period of time where coffee culture, coffee nerd culture was getting really out of control.
Yep.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And these days, I think it's
tapered back. It's become more.
It's equalized into the fact that people just enjoy drinking coffee.
Yeah.
You're there to make coffee for people who enjoy it. Yeah. There's nothing, there's nothing cool about it.
Yeah.
In my eyes, anyway.
Yeah.
I think it's the coolest part is that you get to make someone coffee that they will enjoy. Yeah. And you get to see if they enjoy it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the cool part. It's not about being a barista and being really cool, it's not like that. Yeah.
Okay. And so then, how did Yan Restaurant come about then?
Restaurant is always something that me and Ray wanted to do. And the cafe was just we thought was going to be the easier way into this industry.
Yep.
So we were always wanting to expand eventually into a restaurant. And the shop came available. The building was built by my dad.
Yeah, we did the line dance for that one too.
So it's very cheap for us to open up there, and yeah, so that's basically how it started. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so then, when you're in this setup phase, right, and then you've got to organize, the kitchen and all these different things, suppliers, obviously. Did you already have those contacts from John Montagu, or did you have to reach out to new suppliers? Because it's now you're doing, restaurant food as opposed to cafe food.
The cafe food. We were probably early on in the cafe scene, where we were providing proper food.
Yep. Like
not just sandwiches that are made in the morning and put in the fridge by some random. Like we had real cooks and chefs. At the time, our suppliers told us that they didn't supply cafes.
Okay.
When we first opened, and we were like, well, we're different. And then through some connections, they were happy to supply us proper stuff.
Wow.
So we had proper restaurant suppliers coming to our cafe. Now that's very normal.
Yep.
Yeah. So we already had suppliers, and we just used the same ones.
Suppliers.
Yep.
And then, when it came to the idea behind the cuisine, how did you guys come up with the flavor or the style of food that you wanted to create?
It started off with me driving down to Melbourne to watch the Formula One and go to a track day. It was actually inspired by music. Well, not inspired by music, but music is what got me onto that trajectory. Basically, being in a car alone for 12 hours.
Yep. Your thoughts go wild.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of my ideas come from.
Yeah.
I'm quite introverted, so I enjoy being alone. And I was listening to some kind of rootsy, bluesy music from the States, and it was taking me to barbecue in America.
Yep.
And I love barbecue.
Yeah.
And then the thought was, we can't have barbecue in Australia. That's good, and even if it's good, it's not as good. And everyone will always say it's not as good as it is in the States. It's kind of like with Asian food as well. Like the Chinese food here is not as good as it is in China, or, your Malaysian food. It's just not the same.
Yeah.
Same. So I thought that a smokehouse is such a great local restaurant. And where the restaurant was going to be in Woolai Creek was out of the way. Somewhere you'd probably have to drive to, and a lot of barbecue places are in the middle of nowhere.
Yep.
So I thought it's a really cool idea to have smoked meats, something that you spend a lot of time preparing, but it's pretty simple to serve.
Yep.
And but I didn't want to just make an American smokehouse. So I had thought about how barbecue in America is very different depending on where you are.
Location, right?
Location, yeah. So in Texas, you got different styles, and then you go to like Mississippi, or you go to Louisiana or whatever, South Carolina. It's all really different. They have different rubs, different sauces, different meats that they focus on. And so I thought, what if Sydney was a city somewhere in Texas? What kind of barbecue after 300 years of doing barbecue, what kind of food would come about? And I instantly thought Asian.
Yep.
Yeah. Sydney's an Asian city, mostly.
Be careful where you say that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look at the best restaurants in Sydney. and look at what kind of ingredients they use and flavors, and you'll often see things like soy sauce and mirin and miso and all these like Japanese and Cantonese
Asian inspired
flavors. I mean, it's just good flavor, and I'm Asian, so So I thought, and then I tried to think about, has anyone ever done this before? And I couldn't think of anyone. The first dish I thought of was char siu, but smoked. Thinking, that would be delicious, right? If there was a smoky element to char siu. And that's the idea, and I got really excited about that. So
So then you would have put that to Ray.
To
try and
I did.
create.
Let's do this thing. And he wasn't sure at the time, but I'm very passionate, so
you got your way.
We thought we'd give it a go. I mean, I sold it. I think I sold it pretty well.
Yep.
I still think to this day that Asian smoked food, if we're around long enough and if we develop enough of a following, could become a uniquely Sydney thing.
Yeah,
maybe.
Well, yeah, it's. I always find it funny, when you were talking about people saying that barbecue can be good here, but not as good in America, or Chinese food or Malaysian food or whatever. In some instances, I think we're so fortunate to be in Australia because the quality of the ingredients we have is actually could be significantly better than as an example versus some of the third world Asian countries. So as a result of it, the flavors are different. They're more richer or deeper as a result of the quality of the ingredients.
For sure.
Right. And I think the other interesting thing is that how different regions can have a specific flavor. And then as obviously aside from COVID and not being able to travel, but as people have traveled more places, you sort of almost yearn for that variety, and we get used to being spoilt for choice and being able to, some days you might feel like this and other days you might feel like that. And, whereas I guess, in the past, and I always say this, but, if eating was more a survival thing, now it's an experience thing, right? And when you go to specific places, you're going because the food's good, but you're also going because you want a specific experience as a result of it.
Yeah.
How did then, because I know you guys are in, all those good food guides and things like that. Like, how did that sort of stuff come about? Did that just,
it's just through word of mouth.
Yep.
Yeah.
And people just turned up.
Yeah.
And then do they announce themselves, or do you just treat them like normal?
So in terms of food critics,
yep,
they don't announce themselves. They don't tell us that they're coming.
Yep.
And because we're new to the industry, we didn't really know any of them.
Yep.
So yeah, that was a nice surprise for us. Yeah.
Yep.
That we were well reviewed. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so, did you ever have any hiccups like with them?
No, not at all. I think personally, I'm not that hectic of a person these days.
Yep.
Pretty calm. So I like things to be calm.
Yep.
I like things to be I don't like to really push past boundaries in terms of what you can do.
Yep.
Maybe it comes from driving on the track a lot. Like it's
it's that finesse as opposed to trying to
like
push your way around.
Like understanding that the fastest way around the track is probably with the least amount of drama.
Yep.
So I take those lessons a lot into whatever I do. So we're not usually too stretched.
Yeah.
And, that comes at a cost sometimes with profits and stuff like that. But when it comes to having people in who are important to the business, from a marketing point of view, like reviewers and whatnot, then we're pretty well prepared.
Yep.
Yeah. Shit's not usually hitting the fan.
Yeah.
That often. So,
I like that because one of the things that I'm really big on, and I keep telling my staff, all the time nowadays is consistency over intensity. You know, that it's great to be intense, but if you blow a fuse and you're out, you know, then you've got nothing.
Yeah.
So, you know, the best approach is to try and be as consistent as possible, which, you know, some people would say that, you know, then you fall into maybe a boring routine, but that boring routine can probably actually yield the best results.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest challenge.
Yep.
Yeah, is things not being interesting enough. You know, and things generally are more enjoyable when you're under the pump. In hindsight, especially.
Yep.
Maybe at the time, maybe not, but you know, it's when things are more exciting. Obviously, it's something we all yearn. We want excitement.
Yeah.
In our lives, but actually, sometimes it's not the best way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that, you know, it's funny because, you know, I've gone through many different sort of iterations of my thinking on this because, you know, like everybody, we talk about work-life balance as an example, right?
Yep.
And then you have people that say, oh, you know, work-life balance is bullshit. And so then, you know, you maybe you go down that track where you think that, you know, you should be able to extract, you know, 150% out of life as you're barreling down this, you know, down this timeline. But at some point, it all catches up to you. So I sort of view it, you know, like when we think about peaks and troughs, right? If you have that peak, just, you know, maybe it's just that little bit higher and that trough being just that little bit higher as well, then the line still goes, you know, upwards.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's, you know, a massive peak and a massive trough, it's just leveled out.
Yeah, that's right.
So, you know, I actually do still believe in a work-life balance because you need to have that, you know, consistency for your kids and your own sanity and your own family. Because I think once you lose sight of that, your motivation wanes too.
Yeah, it's really important. It's really important. It also requires a lot of maturity. So when you do have that kind of culture, maybe you will end up attracting people who are mentally mature enough to handle that. Yeah.
So have you had some challenges in terms of staff?
Not necessarily. I mean, staffing is always going to be an issue, maybe, but I do believe that good staff are a result of their managers, or you know, like a good student is a result of a good teacher.
Yep.
That kind of thing. So generally, when we do have issues, it's more than likely to be my fault.
Yep.
Or our fault. So it's not. I'm not the type of person who goes around saying, "Oh, staff, can't do shit." You know? It's like they're actually the most important part of what I do, and for the most part, they do every job that I can do better than what I can. So that's the whole point, I think.
Yeah. So then, you know, obviously, you know, having these businesses comes with challenges as well. So, and like I was just saying this to Nads before, but so my cousins in Singapore are friends with Ray because I think Ray grew up in Singapore as well.
Yeah.
But then obviously there was a point where you know Ray's had another opportunity and he just decided to, you know, take that opportunity. What happened in that conversation? Like, you know, how did he bring that up? Or
well, it's not like it came out of the blue. For whatever reason, I think Ray was not happy at the time, or for quite a bit of being in partnership with me.
Okay.
This opportunity to go to China came up many times.
Okay.
For the both of us.
Yep.
And I don't want to live in China.
Yep.
It's just not for me and not for a family.
Yep.
In my opinion.
So what was the idea? Was the idea like were they coming to you saying, "Hey, come set something up"?
Yeah. And
then live there for X amount of years, and then
it was just basically come help us set something up.
Okay.
And you know, we'll make it worth your while.
Yep.
That was as simple as that.
Yep.
He's like, you know, come to Guangzhou and we'll show you around and we'll show you what we have to offer.
Yep.
That was it.
And
we
were these people-
didn't know what it was going to be.
And,
For me, it was like, I'm not interested.
mm,
And for the most part, Ray would agree with me.
yep.
I think Ray's a very loyal person, so he probably felt some kind of loyalty to the fact that I wanted to start a business with him.
Yep.
So if he was interested, he wouldn't have told me.
Yep.
Anyway.
Were they patrons of the restaurant? Or?
Yeah.
So they had come to the restaurant, experienced it, and gone, hey, there's an opportunity here.
Yeah.
So obviously there would have been business people from China or
Yeah, and they were friends with one of my cousins.
Okay.
So it's not like they didn't know who we were.
Yep.
They knew that there was like a relationship there that I could, like, we could be trusted.
Yep.
And yeah.
So then I guess
So after a couple of years, 2-3 years of them asking, we got to a point where I knew Ray was unhappy, and so I just told him, look, these guys are pestering us again. Why don't you just go?
Yep.
Check it out.
Yep.
I won't go, but you go and check it out.
Yep.
And maybe there's something there.
Yep.
And then so when he got back, he basically told me that I think it's a really good opportunity.
Yep.
Yeah, that's basically how he basically had made a decision that was probably what was going to suit his life
at that time.
Yeah, at the time.
Yeah. And it's hard because, like, I think, because Ray was at a different part of his life too, right?
Yeah, so I knew he would want that opportunity, and I'd spent a lot of time trying to make him happy, and I wanted him to be happy, and I felt that he wasn't.
Yep.
So I thought that if I told him to go, that he would come back
And then
wanting to take the opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then obviously that's what happened.
Yeah.
And then so then did that then did you feel any pressure at that point in time then? Because obviously, you guys had been in this partnership for quite a while, a number of years now.
Yeah.
And then now it's like you're on your own? Or
Yeah, it was difficult because Ray was in charge of all the kitchen operations, so I didn't have anything to do with it much other than taste the food and make sure it was
right.
It was right. But, even then I didn't even have to taste it because Ray was so talented.
Yep.
You could trust anything that came out of the kitchen, really.
Yep.
It was just different. It was different adjusting. I think the biggest part of adjusting is it's basically going through a breakup.
Yep.
You feel like that there is so much, what did you do wrong and whatnot, I can say it with clarity now, but it's difficult to break any relationship. And you go through difficult times. So you can blame yourself, you can blame
the other person.
Yep. Blah blah blah. But yeah, it was hard to adjust because all the kitchens were run by him.
Yep.
And so the systems were set up by him, and everything was operating in that way.
Yep. To his style.
To his style, and then having to change that over time is difficult. Yeah. And then having the financial pressure as well.
Yep.
To have to buy him out essentially was financially difficult. So yeah, it was a tough ride for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
So then, I guess, did that teach you? Was there any lesson that you learnt out of that you sort of reflect on and go, it was a good thing?
Oh, of course, it was a good thing. I think definitely it was a good thing.
Yep.
The lesson learnt is that sometimes you hold on for too long.
Yep.
When things should have happened quicker.
Yep.
Be it things that I didn't do for Ray.
Yep.
Or should have done, or even just our split.
Yep.
Maybe
held on to it too long.
Yeah, or just trying too hard to do things that you can't control. Yeah.
Yeah, I always one of the things I always like to say, with to my staff as well, in terms of business, most decisions are generally binary, and I know there's probably people out there that are screaming now, going, "No, they're not." Like, there's a big grey area. But when I say that, I think when there's a decision to be made, you either choose to do it or you choose not to do it, and then by virtue of saying, "Let me think about it," or delaying the decision, you've essentially just chosen not to do it. And I think when you start to think of your decision making process like that, then generally, if you really feel that strongly that you want to do something, you're going to always do it. On the flip side, if you're really thinking that you need to think about it, you're actually still more leaning towards not actually doing it. So that's sort of my approach to it. I try and to make things as easy as possible for people to make decisions. So I always say to them, just when you think about this situation, by you saying that you're thinking about it, really, you're leaning more towards no, and that's fine. Like, don't be upset if it's a no.
Yeah.
It's fine to say no, but just say it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We sort of deliberate, and as a result of that, sometimes situations get worse because we feel like we're going to actually hurt people more by not taking that opportunity to say yes or no.
Yeah.
So then, I guess let's talk a bit about COVID.
Yeah.
And so I guess January this year, everything would have been sailing along pretty smoothly by then.
Yeah, it was all right. I think we had a rough holiday period.
Yep.
It wasn't particularly busy. By February and March, things were picking up quite well. I think only by that stage were we getting the business to a point where we were doing well.
Yep.
In terms of like after Ray left.
Yep.
Having replaced people.
Yep. The processes, the operation.
It's not just that, it's the culture.
Okay.
Really putting in the culture that I had always wanted from the start.
Yep. And how would you describe that culture?
Just one of kindness and team that helps each other.
Yep.
I believe in being kind, and I recently watched the Jordan documentary. It was awesome, but I'm not Michael Jordan, and we aren't the Bulls.
Yeah,
and it's not what is exciting, but I don't really believe in, it's hard to articulate, but we're not out there to win a world championship. We're not there to strive to be the best there can be. We just want to make people happy.
Yeah.
Our people, our customers, our guests who come in and want to make them have a good time.
Good experience.
But at the same time, we want to have a good time too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's we're not in the culture of yelling because we're not reaching high standards. We have high standards because we want to do a good job, and we help each other get to that place.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're just kind, I think. Hopefully that's the right word. And we know that people aren't always the best at what they do, but everyone's trying the best that they can.
Yeah.
So as long as we understand that and people really do try, then it's okay if we don't do it at the highest level that is humanly possible. We're all improving over time. So yeah.
Well, the longevity of the return on any investment, is typically more governed by the time that you have invested in it, right? So the longer, like in my industry, in the automotive industry, the longer standing my employees are, the more experience they've gotten. but that responsibility also falls onto my management team to try and develop people and make each individual that 1% better every day.
Yeah.
Right. So that over time, let's say whether it's over the course of a month or 6 months, there should be a measurable improvement in performance that may not, when I say measurable, I don't necessarily mean that it relates to a sales figure or volume, or it relates to, that side of things in terms of money. But it could relate to attitude. It could relate to understanding of the bigger picture. It could relate to their knowledge of the product or the knowledge of the brand. It could mean better in their own personal lives because they can apply some of these concepts that they picked up and learnt from being in the business and applying that maybe to their own personal finances and their own home lives and those sorts of things. I think it's a really what you said in terms of that sort of kindness approach really resonates for me, because I always like to view outcomes as outcomes. Like a result is an outcome. Whereas there's a lot of businesses, I think, that will always, focus on those outcomes and say, oh, we didn't sell a car. Why didn't we sell a car? Versus, have we done the right steps? If we've done the right steps, then the outcome will be that somebody wants to purchase a car. Have we done the right steps? Well, then the outcome then is, to be profitable. If we don't have the structure right and we don't have those systems in play, then of course it's not going to work. So, it's been interesting. So I only started in that business on the 1st of October last year. And for the largest portion of that business's time since I think they started about 5 years ago, it hasn't been profitable, right? And that's, people would be like, how can a business not be profitable? How does it survive? Well, we are obviously, have other dealerships in the group that are profitable. And I guess, for the longest period of time, they've sort of been subsidizing the performance of the business that I look after. The great news is I finally, gotten the outcome and gotten it profitable.
Nice.
Right. And I think, that it's funny because when I was talking to one of our other mates, Tim, he was saying that, the change in mindset when you make a business profitable, like, you would have went through with John Montagu and he went through with Airtasker, it does shift your perspective, because now you can start focusing on other things to try and to grow. You've got a baseline that you can grow from. And I think, obviously for you when you've gone through this separation, it almost feels like your foundation's crumbled. And then you've got to now reset that foundation.
That's right.
And redevelop it. But now I guess having that greater control now, you can now set the direction in the direction that you want to take it.
Yeah.
As opposed to, maybe possibly having two different ideas.
Yeah, that's right.
In the direction forward.
Yeah.
So then when coronavirus sort of, came through and then basically you had to shut.
We didn't shut.
You didn't shut?
No, not at all.
So what was your plan of attack?
I knew that it was going to be a problem, especially for the restaurant. The week before things started to really hit home here, I was already feeling a bit uncomfortable because we were packing out. Like, it was nuts. We had the biggest week we'd ever had the week before the shutdown started to be talked about.
Really?
Yeah.
And what do you think was driving that? Was there any particular
just
reason?
Just in general, I think things were going well.
Yep.
People were, starting to maybe come out more.
Yep.
From the Christmas period. We had a hard time when a lot of when we shut the borders from China.
Yep.
Or just when it started happening in February, it was hard. But then after a few weeks, a lot of other people started coming out. Maybe people knew that this was going to be their last opportunity to come out. Who knows?
Did you have this feeling like this week's been so good, it's almost too good to be true?
No, at the time I was like, we have to do something because things were getting out of control.
So you're worried about the experience suffering.
Yeah. I mean, I just, knowing what it was like in the States and in Europe at the time.
Yep.
There's no way we could not experience something similar.
Yep.
So before that last week happened, I decided to switch to takeaway. And that was a week before. It happened really quick. So the week we switched to takeaway, they started to put in some social distancing.
Yep.
And then restaurants closed the week after.
Yep.
So we actually jumped on board with takeaway a week before we were told to shut.
Wow. So what platforms did you jump on board with?
We already had Uber Eats.
Excuse me. Yep.
That's all right. Coronavirus.
Yeah. That's real.
We had Uber Eats from when we weren't busy.
Yep.
But it was just sitting there.
So you weren't really.
We weren't using it.
activate.
We never turned it on. And then so I just switched that on to do takeaways, and then we limited the seating inside.
Yep.
For that week. Or we basically stopped taking all bookings.
Yep.
So we already had bookings for that week, so we honoured those bookings, and then I shut the booking system down and just did takeaway only.
Yep.
And and then the orders started coming through takeaway.
Wow. And was there a drop? Obviously.
Yeah, massive. It was like 60%. Our takeaway orders were busy, but we charged less.
Okay.
Yeah. The average spend for a person at the restaurant is like $60 a head or something, and the average spend for takeaway is probably like $20 a head.
So was that a conscious thing that you
Yeah.
decided to charge less for takeaway?
Yeah, because I knew that you want people to order more.
Yep.
Yeah, you want people to be able to enjoy the food at home.
Yep.
And I don't think it's worth spending $60 a head just to eat food at home.
Yeah.
It's
interesting
come in a
because
takeaway box and
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
well, I think that's almost like the opposite tack to what happens when you're using those providers, because they obviously tack on a fee. So
Yeah.
the majority of your food gets more expensive again.
Yep.
Right.
So after a couple of weeks of using Uber Eats, we found Uber being the most highly paid employee
Yeah.
of our restaurant.
Yep.
So we switched to pickup.
Yep.
And we did our own deliveries.
Yep.
Yeah. And
Okay.
we still have Uber Eats, but we put the prices up
Yep.
on Uber Eats, and then
Try
we
and cut
told
Yep.
and we told people actively on social media to only use Uber Eats if they
Physically
had
can't
to.
get it. Yep.
But we put the prices up.
Yep.
If you can, we quickly set up like an online ordering platform.
Yep.
Yeah.
So then, did you have a supplier for that, or how did you get that organised?
It took a couple of weeks, but our POS system, like all the companies around the world, reacted pretty fast.
Pretty
So
quickly.
yeah, so they had an option. It was our booking system. They switched their booking system to an online ordering system.
Yep.
And then we refined it from there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually a good outcome.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, it was tough for everyone at the start because, everyone agreed on a pay cut.
Yep.
We had to basically put a lot of things on hold. So any kind of government debts we had, we put on hold. Rent was reduced. Even our electricity bills, gas, everything like that. Whatever we had outstanding, we had put on hold. Just to keep cash flow
Yep.
coming in. And then after a couple of weeks, things started to normalize and pick up again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, I guess we're in this fortunate phase at the moment where restrictions are starting to ease.
Yeah.
Have you been able to retain some of that takeaway business as
Yeah,
well as?
it dropped off pretty quick.
Yep.
Once people were able to eat out,
Yep.
Takeaway orders dropped quite a lot.
Yep.
Yeah, but people started coming in and spending more.
Yeah,
It's actually
which is a win.
it's a win. We're more profitable now.
Yep.
For sure. With the takeaway and delivery, it was about breaking even.
Yep.
And now we're moving into a phase where we can be a bit more profitable.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so things are starting to, I guess, normalize. So
Yeah. It's still it's kind of a weird little fantasy period because things are still like
up in the air.
Up in the air. We still have bills that we need to pay.
Yep.
Staff aren't on their full wages yet.
Yep.
Rent is not back to normal. And the government is helping us.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
JobKeeper. Yep.
So we have a little brief period here where we can be quite profitable. Percentage wise, better than normal.
Yep.
But it's about solving this problem now of what's going to happen in the next 3 months.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I guess, when you talk to some of the people that are coming in now, what's their sort of sentiment? Are they, are people generally upbeat or?
Yeah, people are like,
nervous?
oh, cool, he goes back to normal. It's like, well, not really, but
yeah.
I think the general consensus is that people feel like they're going back to normal.
Yep.
Yep. People are pretty happy to come in.
Yep.
Super happy for us that we're still around.
Yep.
Yeah. And
okay.
That's generally how it is. I think most people are quite not ignorant, but they just don't understand what it takes to be operational.
There's a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah, it's a lot of moving pieces, and it's not as easy as it seems, you know. And we fill out every night, but we still only can have 12 people sitting in at a time.
Yeah.
So it's not a lot of money.
Yeah.
But, for now it works. But people are generally really happy for you. Like, oh, you guys are full. That's great.
Yeah.
But
all the seating spaced out. It's like, not as full as it could be.
Yeah. But, I don't try and lower the mood or anything. But
yeah. You've got to try and keep it upbeat.
Yeah,
right?
keep it upbeat. Yeah, it's fine.
So then what about your suppliers? Like, obviously they would have like a backlog of all this extra stuff as well, because a lot of the restaurants would have cut back what they're ordering.
Yeah, so a few suppliers actually shut down throughout the period in which we had to change suppliers temporarily, but they're back now.
Yep.
There was no real backlog of things. I mean, we order fresh produce. It's either being eaten or thrown away.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the shame there.
Yep.
But no, I think suppliers are. I think you can kind of see from all of this who are the good ones.
Yep.
There are people who give you leeway, right, and are understanding that we're all in it together.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and then there are those ones who don't particularly don't seem to care.
Yep.
And just looking out for themselves. And that sours a relationship. Yeah.
But that's I think it's good in tough times. You really get to see who
your friends are.
Who your friends are.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's what I told everyone. This is such a great opportunity for everyone, that we're lucky enough to stay in business, that we're lucky enough that we can keep serving people, and that while we're here, we are basically the friends of everyone who orders from us. And we need to look after people.
Yep.
That's why there was a move to making things cheaper rather than more expensive. It's like, people are all going to be struggling.
Yep.
And we need to support them as much as they can support us.
Yep.
Obviously they don't need us to support them, but I think you can build a relationship through the tough times by,
by helping your fellow person.
Helping people. And, we're going to have to take a pay cut. I haven't been paid for a few months other than JobKeeper, which has been great. But yeah, it's kind of a thing that we developed a lot of new relationships with people who maybe didn't come to us before, but because we stayed open, they were appreciative of that. And I think everyone realizes that we had to sacrifice a lot to stay open.
Yep.
and people are grateful of that. Hopefully,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I hope most people feel that way about any business that has been able to function in these difficult times. It's always that thing. You don't know what you've lost until it's gone.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
and I find it interesting. Especially throughout this whole Corona COVID style thing. It sort of put a almost like a compulsory wall. Between a lot of people, when we're in that period where people are not supposed to travel for non-essential reasons, etc. And sometimes I think about it with my own parents, like my parents, and your parents. They're getting older, and then because I was still working and I'm still in contact with people, I was like consciously trying not to go visit them. But then I started to think, if something was to happen to them, I'd probably be more upset that I didn't still go and see them, and of course I don't want to.
Well, you don't want to be the person,
be the one to hurt them, right? But it's such a hard spot to be in, and I think everybody would have been going through this, this feeling like you don't want to be the person that hurts another person, in unintentionally, but at the same time, you miss that contact and that relationship and that. That ability to see somebody face to face, and that's hence why in terms of my podcasting, I love doing this because I get to sit down, have a honed in conversation with somebody, for a good period of time, and like with yourself, and get to catch up and really share in some of these stories and some of these memories.
Great,
yeah, man, we've just like smashed out an hour and a half.
Ah, good.
So
Nice.
So if people want to find you, obviously check out.
John Montagu and Yan Restaurant.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. So if you haven't gone there, please give it a try. It's really good food. I've been there plenty of times with my wife.
Don't believe what people say. It's pretty crap. Come with low expectations.
Okay. So no hype. Just go expecting the worst, and then just expect kindness.
Yeah. That's it. That's it.
All right. We'll leave it there.
Thanks.
Thanks, Nads. Bye.
Bye.